Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Durrell here with patreon.com/Jagerbombs to bring you a new show on Wednesday, looking at DFS PGA leverage plays using FanShare Sports. We're very proud to partner with FanShare Sports and bring you guys a discount. Use code Jaeger and you will get 20% off any subscription, whether that be a monthly, weekly, yearly. I got a great deal going on for NFL coming up here in about 2 or 3 weeks as well. So make sure to get in on that as well. If you have any questions, make sure to hit me up in chat. With that, let's dig into this week. So we've got the BMW Championship. I went over the FanShare Sports tutorial, so make sure to check that out in my earlier video. I kind of went over just a general overview of the site and how to go about using it. So what I've now done is compile and look at every Wednesday what I do with FanShare, and I've done this for 2 to 3 years now, pretty much since their product came out. Is Wednesdays is when I'll go over. I'll usually have my core plays set up. I've got my rankings over here on the sheet of my core plays, top 10 plays. I got Prize Picks plays, my betting card as well. To members of my Patreon. But what I do on Wednesdays is I go through now FanShare Sports and I look at ownership projections, which I like theirs because, like I said, they curate all the information, whether it be a podcast, a YouTube video, an article, a mention on social media, puts that all together and gives it a sentiment rating, and then an ultimate overall ownership projection using their model. So what I like to do is then look at who's going to be high owned, who's going to possibly come under owned, and then just go through a few players that I think are going to be lower owned. I'm not going to show you the actual projections. I'm going to share the sheet here in a second. But what I have done is highlight a few players who are going to be kind of in that higher range of ownership. And then in blue over here in this column E, which I will use for the video here. Oops, opened up some useless tabs there. To show you some plays that I think can be lower, possible GPP plays that will give us some leverage in GPP that are going to be, at least half the ownership of some of these higher owned guys. So let's just dig right in the top tier. We've got Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas are going to come in very high owned. I like them both a lot this week. They are going to probably be the chalk. And I think we're not going to see guys in GPP that are going to be reaching like that 40-50% range because there is a really strong field here, fairly balanced in terms of pricing. So we're going to see some ownership spread out between some of these price tiers. But I think Rahm and Thomas are definitely going to be in that top 5 this week. That's kind of backed up by FanShare Sports as well. It was my initial feeling. Jordan Spieth, someone who interests me a little bit here this week. He really extremely let us down last week, but what I do like is he's elite around the green. We got some smaller greens here at the BMW. We're looking for maybe some distance plus accuracy, so there is going to be some risk here for sure. But in this field over like the last 24 rounds, he is 10th in strokes gained par 4, which is really good to see. He's there in par 5s, and he's a little bit in like average. Let's go over here and just have a look on the sheet in terms of the long iron proximity here. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a concern too. So this isn't a play with the projected ownership for him, probably in that 5 to 8% range, I would think is where it kind of ends at. And if it does, you only need to have him if you're doing 20 max. Probably looking at maybe like 2 or 3 lineups and you're going to be over the field. So it's just kind of a play if you're going extremely. I wouldn't even go that way in 20 max, to be honest with you. If I'm doing more than 20 max, maybe jumping up into one of those 150 max tournaments, Jordan Spieth is a player I would probably want to get exposure to with the leverage I think we can get in the top tier. He just recently let everyone down, but he does have winning top 5 upside. And if one of or both Rahm and Thomas underperform, which, for them to capitalize on their upside, these players kind of need to finish top 3, top 5 in terms of DraftKings scoring. And if one or both of JT and Rahm don't do that and Spieth does, you're going to be way ahead of the field in terms of that ownership there. So one that also surprised me a little bit was kind of heading down into this 9,000 range. Rory and DeChambeau, just, kind of because of their prices. This one was a little bit perplexing. Rory and DeChambeau were fairly close to what we see with ownership in terms of JT and Rahm. I think they're just going to kind of fall behind there. But a little bit lower owned, which I didn't really expect coming into today, and not looking at any ownership projections yet, was Tony Fino and Cam Smith. They were playoff last week. I get a lot of people don't like playing people who won the week before. It was an extended match going into Monday, so there's that rest factor. But they both fit this course very well. Cam Smith, 3 straight top 10s, top 5s and 2 straight. Again, he really screwed himself, I guess you could say, to Fino, kind of give that one away. But Fino played very well. His trending going back isn't the greatest, but he does fit this course well. He gives you that distance. I like his and Rahm's swings for a course like this. They really dial it back in terms of their swing looks shorter and choppier than a lot of players, but it gives them a lot of accuracy, and they really don't lose a lot of that distance either. So I really like that out of both of them. And if they're going to be sub 10% owned, while Rory and DeChambeau, who we've seen them blow up in the past and very recently and underperforming in terms of DK points, while we have two players who could be half the ownership and have been outperforming in terms of DK lately. I definitely like those pivots there a lot. Cam Smith and Tony Fino were actually in my top 10, top 15 overall rankings to begin with. And seeing that they're going to be lower owned, I'm just more excited to play them. I am playing this week. I'll have one lineup in cash games, and then I will be doing a 3 max as well. So I won't be getting up to 20 max. It's more of a timing thing for me today. But those are two plays I would definitely have overexposure to and underexposure on Rory and DeChambeau in terms of GPPs if you're building 20, 50, and even up to 150 lineups. So going down into the 8K range, no surprise seeing Corey Connors and Sam Burns is probably two of the highest owned guys in this range. Really good ball strikers. They've both shown some upside recently, top 10s, top 15s. Burns has got a win going back. Connors has been super consistent. So I got no problem playing either of those guys. They're both in my player pool, but two guys I think are going to come under owned this week and fit. I like Abraham Ancer. First of all, I think he's going to come really low, and he won just 2 tournaments ago. So he's definitely one that stands out for me. He's 6th in fairways gained, 18th in strokes gained approach, 30th in par 4. What else stands out is the par 4 scoring from those longer par 4s. You start breaking that down. He's top 10 in that category, top 25 in par 5, 10th in putting. So he's up there in putting as well. So Ancer's just someone that stands out that I think we really need to get on when we're getting an ownership discount on him. And if he comes in that 5% to 8% range, I'll definitely have at least double, probably triple the field on him. Webb is someone, I probably won't have a whole lot of. The form has kind of been very up and down for him, but he's another player I think is going to be a little bit higher owned than Ancer, but much lower owned than Connors and Burns, who I think can definitely perform here at this course. He's gained over 10 strokes, almost 11 strokes on approach over the last couple of events. The putter has been off. So if he gets that putter coming back, the ball striking starting to come back a lot for him. The iron game is there. The long iron game is there. If he gets that putter turned around, I think he can definitely outperform that $8,500 price tag on DraftKings. I think he should probably be, and I think he can perform kind of in that mid 9K to 10K range, to be honest with you. So if we get that kind of return out of him at 8 to 10% ownership, let's say, I think that is excellent. And the same with Connors and Burns. Connors, we know, isn't a very good putter. Burns is the better putter there, so I feel a little bit safer with Burns over Connors. But Connors can definitely blow up in terms of the putting at times. So keep that in mind as well. So this is a good spot. Taking those guys who can have a disaster week in terms of putting, I like pivoting off them if they're going to be really high owned. So Ancer and Webb Simpson in this area. Scrolling down into the value range, we do see some guys. These aren't going to be high owned as these other guys, but these are going to be the guys in green that I have down here are probably going to be the highest owned in this sub 7K range. It's definitely turning into a stars and scrubs kind of week because there's a ton of players that I like under the 7K range. First of all, we've got Sebastian Munoz, Keith Mitchell, Max Homa, Hudson Swafford. I wrote up in my DFSR article this week. The 4 of them are probably going to be, I would think, probably 7 to 10%, which is pretty high for this lower range. A couple players that I'd like to pivot to: Mackenzie Hughes, very good putter. He has been trending here lately. I'm just going to pull up a couple of stats more in the more recent term. He's top 20 in terms of par 4s overall in the last 24 rounds, which is about 6 tournaments. Top 30 in the longer par 4s, 11th in putting, 27th in that long iron proximity, which is good because he doesn't really stand out in terms of distance. or off the tee, or those strokes gains metrics in general. So just seeing that putter gives him a pretty stable floor, I believe. He's someone that I would consider even in cash games if you're playing there and you want to go a little bit more stars and scrubs. I usually go a little more balanced with cash, but he's a player I would definitely consider. Just being a really good putter, I think, gives him a fairly high floor, and he's been really good around the greens. Again, we've got some smaller greens. I believe they are 5,200 square feet on average, which the PGA Tour average is somewhere around 6,500. So not as small as last week at Liberty National, but definitely small greens. So that around the green and putting game is going to be important. So Mackenzie Hughes for sure. And then Chris Kirk is another player. I was on him a lot more earlier in the season when he was on kind of that hot streak. But what I like about him here that stands out for me is he's going to be super low owned, probably. My guess is like 2 to 5%. So like having 1 in a 20 max, 2 in a 20 max is going to be definitely more than the field compared to Mitchell, Homa, Munoz, even Hudson Swafford down here, who's minimum price. What stands out with Chris Kirk is his long irons. He's 16th over the last 24 rounds in proximity from 200 plus yards. He's 29th from around the green. So when he's missing greens, he's getting up and down, better than average in the field. He's 7th in par threes. So that kind of mixes in. If we go and look at the course here real quick, you can see that we've got 3 par threes over 220 yards. The other one is 192. So these are long par threes. Well, Kirk is not only top 10 in par threes, but he's also good at long irons, 200 plus yards, 16th in the field. So that ties right into par threes. So I think while other players are maybe going to be shedding strokes and picking up a lot of bogeys on these par threes, I think a good score, if you go even par on these par threes, even -1 on these par threes, I think you're going to be ahead of the field. And I think that's something Chris Kirk can do. And then also the longer par fours. We've got 6 of these par fours that are 450 plus yards. So that comes in with that long irons that we talked about as well. He's 4th in par 4 scoring from 450 to 500 yards and 22nd in par 4 scoring overall. So just a few things that stand out to me with him that go along with it. I wasn't looking at him originally, but I did see that he's going to be coming very, very low owned. Not the lowest owned in this range, not like guys like Streb or Matt Jones or even like Lucas Glover, Harry Higgs. Those guys are probably going to be like 1%, 2%. I think Kirk's going to be, in that 2 to 5%. I think that's going to be lower than I said, these guys in the green. And I think it's excellent leverage down here just from some of the things that I said with the par 4 scoring, the par 3 scoring, the longer par 4s, the long irons specifically with the longer par 3s mixed in there as well. So that's a player I'm going to mix in. So the last thing that I wanted to do here before we end the video here is I wanted to show you a glimpse into the lineup optimizer on FanShare. I'm not going to go into super detail because I don't want to give away lineups or anything, but what I have done over here is I've gone and highlighted a bunch of players, about a player pool of I think about 30 players. And then once you do that on FanShare, and I definitely go check out that overview video if you aren't familiar with FanShare. But then once you do that, once you highlight your players, done all your research, you've got them all starred, all your favorites, you go to build. It's going to tell you right away. So the first thing that I always do is just do auto exposures and optimize by DK points per dollar. You can go and set all these exposures yourself. It needs to add up to 600 if you're doing, let's do 20 lineups. So if you just mess up one of these exposures, it's going to tell you right up here and give you a total exposure of all players must be 600. Current value is 560. So all of these numbers in this target exposure need to add up to 600. So what I always start with is if you're worrying about tee times, this is an awesome feature as well, is you can choose mostly early, mostly late, or only late. If there's a huge win factor, or if you are playing showdown, this is going to be huge as well. But generally what I do to start the week, I am going stars and scrubs this week, but I do like always starting with optimized DK points per dollar, because what I do is adjust these target exposures on my own. So then all you have to do if you just want to run that, and this is just a general, this isn't my actual player pool this week, is hit that generate lineups, takes you down here to the bottom, and here are all the lineups that it generates. Here's your player pool, and then if you scroll back up to the top, to the right of the target exposure now, it shows you the result. So after it's generated those lineups, we wanted 35% Jon Rahm. We got 35% Jon Rahm. We wanted 27% Thomas. We got 30% Thomas. So Then I start manually adjusting. And this is the same with any optimizer out there. You can go and just smash the button and make it work and enter those lineups. It's nothing guaranteeing you success. You're going to only put yourself in a better position by just obviously putting more time into the filters and stuff. So what I like to do is definitely look at my own target exposure. I've got my rankings, and it is tied very closely to my overall DFS exposure rankings on my cheat sheet that I provide every week. So just go ahead and tell you, Rahm and Thomas are definitely my top two plays this week. So I just want to put them in for 50%. So now that's going to tell us, yes, we're 38. So we need to remove 38% in terms of exposure. So I'm just going to drop down a couple players that I am not as high on. We have the Colin Morikawa injury thing. I still want some exposure to him. It looks like he's going to be fairly high on, but I'm going to get him down to 25. So we need to lose 27 more. So I'm going to find a few more players I don't think I want as much to. Paul Casey is one. So we're going to get that down. We should have 5 left. And just for, I'm just going to put Daniel Berger down to 31. So that message, that red area warning is now gone. Generate lineups is now green. We can now go ahead and generate lineups again. So this is after we've gone and done that. It shows you the projected ownership, the DK, the time, the average projected ownership in the lineup, the total spent. So that's another thing. If you want to not spend all the salary and you want to be a little bit different, it's a really chalky week and you are playing the chalk. One thing you can definitely do if playing a lot of chalk players in your player pool is come up here to this max salary and just bring it down to say, let's say 49,000, minimum salary 48,000. What that, oh, 4,900. That is not going to work. 49,000, generate lineups. What that's going to do is just not use all of your salary now. 49,000 is going to be the most. You're going to leave at least $1,000 on the table is what that means now. So that's just another filter that you can use to kind of separate yourself. I only really use that if I'm really have a player pool that's like 70% chalk plays that are going to be top 10 in ownership projections. That's when I start playing around with these other filters. And then once you're done making your lineups, of course, you can export them to CSV. You can go through your lineups manually. If you do not like a lineup, you can just go ahead and delete it. And then once you're done, you scroll to the bottom, check it all over. Here's your CSV download right there. So we wanted 20, and the accuracy in which we have our exposure set up to where they are, we're within 79% of our exposure. It shows you that as well. So much information here when you're generating lineups. Just go ahead and click that CSV. It's going to click a CSV file. Then when you go over to DraftKings, you can just drop that in, enter those 20 lineups, just super easy. That's all I'm going to cover for now. I'm going to go a little bit more advanced into the lineup generator in a separate video, but I did go over some of FanShare Sports projected top plays, and then some of my GPP leverage plays that I do like that are going to be lower owned. If you have any questions, make sure to either hit me up in the comments below, over on Twitter at Jaeger_Bums9, in the Discord chat, or in DFSR.com. I work over there as well. You can hit me up in that chat as well. Thank you very much for tuning into the video, and good luck this week, everyone.